So when I was a young boy, I remember making friends with one of my neighbors. Now I do remember this story, even though it was over 20 years ago at least. He was one of the wealthier kids in our neighborhood. And I remember at that time that he had a PlayStation and he invited me over one time to play his PlayStation. And so, one day I took permission from my dad. My dad said it was okay. And so I went over to my neighbor's house and he pulled out this PlayStation. We connected it. And guess what? He brought out a demo disc. Now, for those of you who know what a demo disc is, then you are in the right place. And if you don't know what a demo disc is, then you probably shouldn't be listening to the Gamey Daddy channel. Then you're a kid. So if that's the case, stop watching right now and then go on and do something else. But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, this demo disc had Max Payne, it had Tekken, it had a soccer game, it had all kinds of stuff on there. And we just played all these demos and just had a blast that day. It even had Crash Bandicoot. So those of you who are really, really into this gaming scene, who've been gaming for years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that is one of the reasons I'm making a video like this today. And this video is to start to advocate for developers to start using a more consumer direct marketing technique. And instead of waiting for the old guard and waiting for all the big events that nobody really cares about these days, they need to start reaching the consumers directly. Now, I'm not against the big events. I'm not against the old guard or whatever. They have their place. I have no drama or no beef with anybody, but I know that the old school way of getting games into the hands of consumers was giving them a taste of that game and then having them make a decision from what they had played. Now, at that point, if I could afford it, I would have definitely gotten my hands on one of those games. But, I bugged my dad for years and said, hey, I want one of these games. And he eventually got me a console later on. But I was really thankful that I got to experience that. And I'm making this because right now, I think CD Projekt Red is on track for doing something like that. Now, I know many of you may have heard of the microtransaction stuff, but that was a case on monetization of their multiplayer aspect of Cyberpunk 2077. So I would say you want to give that a review again as to especially what that developer said and not go with just the overly inflated, I would say, what's it called? Controversy, bait. That's what a lot of people do with that. So take your time and look through that. But just recently, it's been reported that CD Projekt Red had a consumer or more like a fan event. So they just had the developers just sit down and just talk with fans and just, do a Q&A and just answer questions. And this was actually done in Poland. So, there's just a little community of gamers there who've been fans of CD Projekt Red games and also, fans of their work. And so they just had like a little get together with them and just, kind of broke down and just made some connections with fans directly. I think this is a very solid way to market your game because if you've watched this channel long enough, I've said that games are sold to communities. There is nothing stronger than you actually providing your community with a video game that they can rally around, a video game that they want, a video game that they've supported through its development phase and all through closer to its release. And so CD Projekt Red, I think, did this perhaps because they just wanted to just show their stance on how they treat their fans, their stance on how they treat their consumers, or just to continue to bolster consumer confidence. But I just feel like they just cannot stop there right now. So what do I mean? Well, this was done, for a Polish audience. Now, we all know that CD Projekt Red has a wider audience than just the audience in Poland. And, we all love Poland because we think Slavic magic came from there in the gaming world. But then you have your North American and you have your European and even Australian fans and your Asia fans. So what can CD Projekt Red do in order to meet some of these audiences where they are? I think they need to go back to the old school way of introducing a demo for the game. And this is something that I feel like is going to blow the minds of every gamer in the world, because right now what we've seen is a lot of companies have moved away from this demo proposition to using reveals and using gameplay reveals, which there's nothing wrong in those, but there is also something that is quite amazing in putting a taste of what the consumer is getting into the consumer's hand. It's most likely even going to probably develop a taste for people who are saying, well, I don't really think this Cyberpunk 2077 game is for me, and I think I'm probably going to hold off. Even though I like CD Projekt Red, even though I played The Witcher 3, I've seen comments to that effect. people saying that they don't think that Cyberpunk 2077 is a game for them. Well, why not give them a 20-minute play session of the game? Perhaps a fully leveled up character with a small piece of the game, a small mission, and have them see for themselves if Cyberpunk 2077 is not a game for them. In fact, at this point, the developers can curate a whole different aspect of the game and put it out there for consumers to play. Metal Gear Solid did something similar. The only problem is, Konami decided that they were going to price it, and they did Metal Gear Solid Ground Zero. Now, that is a much more bigger package in that sense, and I'm not saying that CD Projekt Red needs to do something of that scale. In fact, if they did something of a smaller scale, I think this is going to appeal to a lot of gamers. This is going to reach a lot of gamers in places where they don't even imagine it's going to reach. It's going to build community hype more than anything, because we are the people making the purchasing decisions based on what we already know, based on what we have, and God help us, what we've already played a little bit of. That is definitely where some of their marketing can actually stretch its reach and meet gamers. So not just a beta. I'm not talking about an alpha. I'm not talking about a beta test. That's not what I'm talking about. The alpha and the beta test models are just antiquated right now, because we've seen alphas, we've seen betas, and all we could say about those alphas and betas were either one school of thought say, well, it's just the beta, the game's probably going to get better on release, or people say things like, well, it's the beta, and we all know that beta means this is the game, and no one is getting fooled at this point. So I feel like more transparency and more community invitation is what CD Projekt Red needs right now, especially with Half-Life being announced to be released in the same month as Cyberpunk 2077 and a whole host of other games that are coming out months after. If CD Projekt Red wants to gain a market share for that Q2, they need to do something that other development companies are probably not going to be willing to do. Now, I have to admit, I don't know what the trend has been from the past till now that gaming developers generally just stopped using demos. I guess back in the day, it was just easier to put them in magazines and, to actually have them ship with consoles as a way to say, hey, thank you for buying our console. Here's a list of different games that you can enjoy if you want to make a full purchase. And in today's world, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of gameplay. There are gameplay videos. There are YouTubers out there that are actually showing these gameplay videos and these gameplay loops that may fulfill that need. But I don't think that necessarily feels the need that I'm talking about. Sure, it's nice for YouTubers to be able to make money from the gameplay videos that they put out there, giving it to big channels and having them do the gameplay so we all can see. I know that has influenced my decisions a lot. I mean, I've watched, people like the Rad Brad play a game and I'm like, oh, I'm a buyer, and I jump in there and I go buy the game and I play the game and I enjoy it as well. And so that's another trend that's probably also maybe fill that gap. But I think they need to now take it one step further and eventually get the consumers, the gamers directly in this process and say, hey, why don't you guys go try 20 minutes of gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077 and maybe even give us feedback and tell us what you think? Or before the game's release, maybe to get that final set of people who are sitting on the fence to either make up their mind whether yay or nay, they need to take the risk and say, all right, go on Steam or go on PlayStation or go on Xbox Live right now and play a demo of our game and see if it's a game that you actually want. And I think this will probably increase their maybe pre-order numbers and most likely definitely increase and improve their sale numbers in general. I'm saying this in regard to Cyberpunk 2077 because I believe CD Projekt Red is one of those companies that is capable of doing something like this. And it seems like they're already showing the trend based on all what they've been doing, all their actions, all their statements, and their process of developing this game. They're very much interested in the acceptance and perception of their community. So that's why I'm making this video, just to make sure that this is actually placed out there. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for those of you who've listened and watched this video. Those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. I just had a few minutes and I thought, hey, why not just put this video out there for the community? You can watch it, but I won't recommend you do that during Thanksgiving time. Watch it in your free time, spend time with family, enjoy the day, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.